It begins like an ordinary dawn, the kind that slips into being without ceremony. The world never warns you before it shifts. It simply tilts. At 6:17 a.m. Eastern Time, the first hints leak onto the internet. A flare over Eastern Europe. Satellite signatures showing something no one once confirmed. A missile launch. Within minutes, timelines fill with baffled posts. Newsrooms stumble between conjecture and hushed restraint. And slowly, the truth settles like cold metal. A global war has opened its first chapter. Across the United States, the reaction is strangely muted. Not panic, disbelief. Alarms buzz on bedside tables. Early risers scroll through headlines morphing from unverified blasts to NATO mobilizing. Wall Street is still asleep. Airports continue their boarding rituals. Coffee brews, radios chatter, traffic hums. But beneath the familiar noise, something invisible begins to shift, a subtle tremor in the national heartbeat. At 6:45 a.m., a sudden emergency alert ignites phones along the East Coast. The message is stark. National defense condition raised. Stay indoors. Await instructions. Most Americans have never seen a DEFCON notice outside of fiction. Some laugh it off, convinced it's a glitch. But the piercing broadcast tone is enough to halt conversations mid-sentence and freeze commuters where they stand. In major cities, decades-old protocols rumble awake. Barricades, traffic stops, transit suspensions. Curfews drafted during the Cold War resurface like ghost directives. Subways grind to a halt between stations. Airspace around Washington and New York empties. Europe-bound flights taxi back to the terminal. It's still. No explosions, no smoke. Only fragments of information swirling like ash. Television networks shift to emergency format. Anchors read government statements in careful rhythm, voices trying to mask the dread in their eyes. Officials speak of calm, but the silence behind their words is louder than their reassurances. This is not practice. As sunlight stretches over the East Coast, Americans greet it with a new, uneasy understanding. Something irreversible has erupted hundreds of miles away, and its shadow is already brushing their doorsteps. By 8 a.m., the nation is awake, not under attack, but undeniably changed. By mid-morning, the routine of life fractures. Communications still function, but information becomes both anchor and poison. Newscasters speak quietly. Emergency lines repeat the same steady mantra. Stay inside, stay calm. In Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, the crowds surge into supermarkets. Shelves empty in record time, faster than hurricane warnings ever emptied them. At gas stations, cars coil around blocks. Raised voices spark between strangers, each one just a tiny spark from minds stretched thin by uncertainty. The government's plan in these first hours is simple. Contain the fear, steady the population, reposition defenses quietly. But the absence of visible battle creates a vacuum, and vacuums invite imagination. False reports spread like wildfire. Claims of missile hits in Los Angeles and Houston climb the trending lists. Grainy clips, some authentic, many forged, show streaks in the sky and dark silhouettes intercepting them. Reality becomes blurry. Tens of millions scroll endlessly, unable to tell rumor from truth. In Washington, the White House stands shrouded by barricades and circling aircraft. Convoys roll out of the city. In New York, trading halts after repeated circuit breakers. The markets don't collapse. They simply pause, stunned. Across the heartland, electricity flickers as households overload grids, charging everything they own. Staying connected becomes a form of survival. By noon, schools close nationwide. A precaution, officials say. Highways clog as parents rush to pick up children, guided not by policy, but instinct. And in these 6 hours, America meets the first paradox of modern war. The conflict hasn't arrived, yet its shadow dictates every decision. Then comes the afternoon, when the world dims. At 1:17 p.m., The country falls into an unnatural quiet, not from bombs, but from absence. The digital collapse begins. ATMs freeze mid-count. Debit cards fail. Internet speeds fall, then shudder, then crumble. Banking sites vanish. Government portals time out. Social media dies like a string of extinguished lanterns. It's not a total blackout, but a spreading mosaic of darkened zones. Each outage triggers another wave of fear. Stores can't process payments. Rural cell towers blink out, isolating towns completely. Emergency radio becomes the final thin thread connecting people to something larger. A steady, unchanging voice repeats, "This is a national broadcast. Remain calm." Federal response ongoing. Every 5 minutes, the same loop, the same calm cadence, the same rising disbelief. Hospitals power up generators. Ambulances ration fuel. Families gather outside medical centers, searching for updates that cannot be sent. In countless homes, people stare at lifeless routers. Parents dig out old radios, forgotten flashlights, stashed batteries. Neighbors speak across yards again, bridging distances previously filled by screens. The blackout doesn't destroy, it isolates. And isolation breeds a new kind of fear, imagination unrestrained. For the first time in decades, America feels alone, not as a nation, but as millions of disconnected islands. By late afternoon, certainty is the first casualty of war. Night arrives, heavy and unfamiliar. By 6 p.m., darkness settles over cities without their usual glow. East Coast power grids collapse into silence. Candles and lanterns flicker in windows. Police vehicles patrol empty streets, their loudspeakers echoing instructions that feel more like wishes than orders. In small towns, families huddle around radios emitting faint voices from hours earlier. Somewhere, a broadcast loops warnings about boiling water, though no context follows. Fear mutates. No longer fear of incoming fire, but fear of the unseen, the unknowable. Rumors of clashes in the Atlantic swirl at 8:30 p.m. unverified, untraceable. On highways, abandoned cars line the shoulders like stranded hopes. The skies are nearly empty, aside from the occasional silent streak. Satellites, aircraft, or something else. Inside dim living rooms, Americans rediscover gestures long forgotten. Handwritten notes, quiet prayers, shared blankets, the soft tremble of long pauses. Some share generators. Some lock themselves in. Trust stretches thin. Yet in that fragile fabric, small lights appear. Churches open their doors. Volunteers organize food stations. Amateur radio operators stitch together scraps of communication across states. By 10 p.m., the blackout reaches the Pacific, sealing the country in darkness. For the first time in modern memory, the United States falls asleep separated from itself. The first day concludes not with fire, but with stillness. The war has not reached every town, yet its echo is in every mind. The next morning, a changed country wakes. Daylight reveals a nation paused. Highways cluttered with stalled cars. Fuel stations dead. Storefronts dark and silent. The sky holds nothing but emptiness. No flights, no contrails. Only footsteps and radio static break the morning air. Sometime before dawn, the government transmitted its first formal address. A voice unfamiliar to most, filtered through static. The message was sparse. The nation remains functional. Continuity protocols enacted. Shelter where you are. Assistance will come. But no timeline, no details. Across the country, people take stock. Water, food, batteries, fuel. Supply chains have vanished overnight. Money feels theoretical. What used to seem abundant now feels measured. Yet beneath the anxiety, a subdued steadiness appears. Neighbors share meals by candlelight. Parents hold children closer. Communities long divided over glowing screens find themselves united by necessity. History tends to slip into turning points unnoticed. They reveal themselves only in hindsight. This morning is such a moment. By midday, makeshift aid centers rise in parking lots and school gyms. Radio operators catch broken messages from overseas, glimpses of a conflict widening. Day 2 begins, but for most Americans the war is not a distant battlefield. It's the quiet erosion of certainty, the realization of how thin the threads of modern life truly are. In a single day, a country built on endless supply has discovered how fragile that illusion can be. The grid, the market, the constant stream of information, all gone, leaving behind older tools, trust, courage, and stubborn endurance. And thus closes the first day, not with cities consumed, but with a nation waking to the truth of survival.